The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it snowed again. What a surprise. And actually, we got a little bit more, I think, than they predicted in Fall River, I think. I had about 3 or 4 inches, I think, in my driveway.
Yeah, I had about 5, and I decided that I was going to try to clear my car out. And forgetting that there's also patches of ice under that snow, I took a nice slip and, ass over tea kettle and smacked my head right on the ground. Still didn't knock any sense into it, but hey,
I hope they don't charge you for a sidewalk repair.
Yeah, really, I know. Well, it's getting to be very interesting here in Fall River. I went to a Niagara Neighborhood Association meeting on Monday. I didn't know that Fall River decided that they're going to make policy and human resources decision based upon the opinions of the neighborhood leaders. The Perry Long position formerly held by Perry Long, was brought up at the Neighborhood Association, I call it a summit, meeting with Mayor Sam Sutter. And he asked if they believe the position should be brought back. And my position is that's a waste of time, but unanimously, the Neighborhood Association leaders decided, yep, we're going to bring that position back because we have to have it. Well, I thought that was funny. And then they were asked, well, do you think that it should come from somebody in Fall River, or can we hire somebody from outside of the city? And all except one person said, oh, no, you can hire from outside of the city. Not a problem. This is the way we like Fall River. Who cares about the people of Fall River? Even our own leaders don't care.
Well, you don't have to be from their neighborhood to be their liaison and their lobbyist. I think that's one of the problems. I think that one of the biggest problems that remain after the Flanagan administration has left was the fact that for political reasons, he created he made the neighborhood groups basically political action groups because he curried their favor with parks and money and giving them a liaison. It's almost like a major corporation or a pharmaceutical company having a lobbyist. Fundamentally, the reality is that the neighborhood liaison is a lobbyist.
It's really funny you should mention that, Chip, because Dan Roblod made a comment about that. So I commented that the neighborhood association leaders are definitely lobbyists. They've become, trying to become a political force. And I also said that they will do anything to screw the people of Fall River now. And 2 of the leaders, and again, I won't mention their names, came out and said, we wouldn't screw anyone for anything, da-da-da-da-da. And I said, whatever. I said it very clearly. You've screwed your neighborhoods. You've become political lobbyists. And if you don't like it, the truth hurts, but it always comes out. But this is the problem we have in Fall River. We now have a mayor who, number one, his approval rating we know has gone down. Day 35, he was running a poll. And now he's going to try to build up that approval rating by catering, once again, like Will Flanagan did, to the neighborhood groups. So I need a park, I need a loan for this, I need a loan for that, and it's going to happen. And interestingly enough, you got to get into this fight with the CDA, because the CDA now believes, and they've actually stated, and I have it in writing, that they are not a community board. They are not subject to the laws of the Commonwealth. They're subject to the laws of the federal government. And because of that, they're not subject to open meeting laws. And their attorneys, Levin and Levin, had made it very clear. I mean, they sent me a packet, yay thick. And so I sent that on to the Attorney General asking for an opinion. But I think it's very interesting that now, and Mike Dion has said this all along, and I'm not going to say he hasn't, that the people he hires is left up to him. The mayor has no say in who he hires, and we know that's absolute bull. And we know that.
Well, I don't know what the C in CDA is supposed to stand for, but the fact is, look, if they're not a community organization, they're not answerable to the community or the communities, plural if in the case, in any case, well, guess what? They should remove that from their name, and they should designate themselves as the United States Development Authority and say the hell with the community, because in reality, they're thumbing their nose at the community. Just as, you know, what the neighborhood leaders now have become self-interest groups, you know, an 800,000, look, I don't care if you don't think you didn't screw the city. The fact is, when you lobby for almost a $1 million park renovation, when the city's on the brink of receivership, you don't give two craps about the city and its financial condition, you know, because it's about biting the bullet. What's the next step? We're going to go into collective bargaining like Flanagan did with all the labor unions and say, let's make a deal, how much you need to hold a sign for me? And, you know, that's not the way we have to do business. We are on the brink of receivership. In a not too distant future, you know, I mean, it's going to be March, and we are supposed to get the state of the city finances from the mayor in March, sometime in March. And I have heard that he's got a very, very sophisticated presentation with charts and graphs and numbers and pictures and whatever. But the bottom line is, cut through all the pretty pictures, is that the city's in big trouble. We are on the brink of receivership, and that calls for serious management. And in most companies, what does that mean? They're not making money. They're on the verge of going under. It means tightening your belt. It doesn't mean expanding your belt. It means streamlining. You know, it means cuts of unnecessary jobs. And that's not what we're doing. I don't see this. I'm sorry. I hope this happens, but it seems that we've put the cart before the horse, and that cart is full of political patronage and money that we're spending before we truly have reorganized, eliminated the fat. And I'm not saying just go out there and just chop everything. We need services, and that's why we pay our taxes. But the fact is, we need to take a scalpel, not a chainsaw, to city government and eliminate a lot of these. As I said before the council, we are over-administered, over-managed, and underserviced. And that's the problem. We have ended up with far too many supervisory positions and far too much management in every department, basically.
Well, Chip, you know, it's funny you're talking about receivership and where we're going, because the governor has come out and said that we're $756 million in the hole this year. And for the new fiscal year, they're already predicting $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion in the hole. Guess what that means for 9C? Yeah. That means the city's not getting anything on the cherry sheets, let me tell you. And the worst part about it is the city is on the hook for almost that amount of money as we know it. So, yeah. You know, how come the state is only $756,000 in the hole, but the city of Fall River is exceeding that amount? And we still think that it's okay to add new jobs. That's what you call financial responsibility. We're really fiscally responsible when we put on a new job. And not only do we put it on, we put it in ordinance. So the city council, the Magnificent Nine, okay, has fallen on board with the mayor. So again, we have no representation, we have no voice, and they're not going to like the stuff that's going to be coming out over the next couple of weeks, not only on this show, but in print, because we're looking at every single elected official in this city, every single one of them, their voting record, their ties, and where they're going. And you know what? So far, it's not looking real good. And I'll tell you something. I was at that neighborhood association meeting on Monday. You know, I've touted that all 9 should go, and you and I know I've said that many times, and that's a fantasy. But do you know how, I mean, people in that meeting were saying all 9 need to go. All 9 need to go. And some of them were even saying the mayor needs to go. So, and these are people who are just members that come to the meeting, you know, which are big gripe fest, I think. But of course, the neighborhood leaders that were present are of course touting that we got to give this a chance. And now the city council says, oh, guess what? We're going to enforce this, so we're going to put an ordinance in. So they're going to bring to the ordinance committee now ordinances to enforce pay as you throw. What part of the people of Fall River do not want pay as you throw? What part of that does the city council not understand? Do I have to put it in a 6-foot-high poster and bring it into the city gallery, city hall council gallery, and put it in the middle of the room saying, read here. If you can't read English, I'll get it translated. Because at this point, the people are fed up. The people are truly fed up. You're talking to the wall. You really are. Because guess what? Not one of them represent your need. Not one. They represent their own.
Well, that's a, you know, good tirade. I like that. I like a little passion. But you're right. You know, number one, as I said, the neighborhood leaders have become self-interest groups, and now they're currying favor again. But the fact is that, look, neighborhood associations were functioning pretty well before we ever had a liaison. I remember vividly neighborhood associations screaming and getting the mayor to neighborhood meetings and a police chief when there was crime in the neighborhoods. They're fully capable of, as you said, go to one of their meetings and listen to all the complaining and griping and all the talking. You know, they're not mutes. They can speak. They can advocate for their neighborhood. But the thing is, their advocacy has to you know, you have to realize that's one of the reasons that some people in this community don't like New Bedford's government with ward councilors, because they feel that ward councilors only care about their own ward because they continue to get elected by the people in their ward as long as they take care of the people in that little neighborhood. Well, we have a city, and we have a city that's in dire need of things, and we need priorities. Look, as I said a million times, I would like to have the best parks, you know, in the world here. But the fact is that I'd also like a private jet and a Ferrari, but I can't afford either. So, you know, I've got to drive my old car, and I've got to, you know, I can't have a private jet. And I also have to make sure that I pay my electric light bill and my heating bill, so I don't freeze to death and walk around in the dark. And, you know, because that's what I have to do. And this city has to have fire protection, police protection. We have to have an education system. We have to pick up our trash. But it has to be done in the most cost-effective way. We have to deliver services to the people. And the government that we've got is just a reflection of what happened. You just went on that about spending and you know, but let's look at the state. We've said it before. The state's going to have over a $1 billion deficit. Did that stop them from giving a 23% raise to the judges and the sheriffs? No. Did that stop them from giving a 15% raise to the DAs? No. Did that stop the legislature from squirreling aside $1.6 million to give themselves pay raises? No. While everybody else suffers and they figure out how to tax us to make up these deficits and cut our health care and make us pay more, they're getting more money. And they don't care about the increases. They run our, and a classic example of that is that crock of baloney they call the GIC, that all the politicians touted as being the new panacea to health care. It's been crap since they put it in. They had to subsidize it every year. Last year, they had to pump $50 million in it to keep it afloat. This year, they're making drastic changes to the GIC because it would have needed a $100 million infusion to keep the thing afloat. Everything they do is smoke and mirrors. It's crap. And the reality is, you talk about they don't listen. Well, there's only one way to make them pay attention. That's on a September or a November day when you put a check mark in the box. Because it apparently, government on all levels, all they do is give us lip service. This city is, as I said, I truly believe it's in receivership. If all the bills came due right now, this city would be so far in the toilet, we'd be out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So, that's the reality of the situation. And and it doesn't seem that anybody is really looking at solutions that will actually have a long-range effect, like streamlining government, cutting the fat. No, it's like, all right, let's hire this guy and that guy to help them figure out how to do this. We all know what it is. I mean, in private industry, you're not making a lot of money. The boss comes in and says, "Oh, no more overtime. We got to tighten our belt. We got to lay off a few people. We got to do more with less." That's the way it is. If we want to stay afloat. Well, our government doesn't figure it that way. Our government's answer to staying afloat when you're in a financial toilet is to spend more money, hiring more people to figure out how to do it, and they've been trying to figure out how they do it since the 1800s.
Yeah, it's very interesting though, Chip, that no matter what you say, nobody wants to pay attention. And the reason why you have the representation that you have, and I'm not going to get into Chip's famous quote about what the Constitution says about the power of the elected official, because I've said it enough, but when Chip says it, it has more force. But let's just start with the Magnificent Nine real quick, okay? Pat Casey, whatever the mayor wants, the mayor gets. The only reason Pat Casey is there, and we know it, is for the health insurance. Nothing else. That's why she's in that job. She needs that health insurance. And I don't deny people the need of health insurance, but guess what? That's not the reason why you become a city councilor. Jaisal Correa, he was so busy for Friday's special city council meeting, he was somewhere else. I hope he was somewhere else on city business because he wasn't in Fall River doing it. Then you go down the line, you get from Jaisal to Paul Da Silva. I'm present. Actually in this case, he voted for everything the mayor wanted. So again, we have a political rubber stamp. Boom. Move on to Mike Mayoza. Out of 2 votes, Mike voted 1 down. Okay? You've got to give him a 20% backbone. But again, somebody who's not, again, representing the needs of the people. Had he and Ray Mitchell represented the needs of the people, this budget would have never gone forward. But they cut a deal with Kathy Ann Viveris and said, oh, it's better than a 112 budget. Well, I don't think that works. Okay? You go to Leo Pelletier, Leo's Leo. People vote him because he has a great chow mein sandwich, and Leo's a character. And believe me, he's been a character for 20 some odd years on the city council. He's going to be a character for a few more. Okay? Linda Pereira, she now totes, the gospel of Sutter. There's nothing he says that's wrong. Doesn't matter how much it costs, Linda Pereira has got to vote for it. And then Dan was away on vacation because his wife took them away for his birthday. I don't fault him for that. But again, city business needed to come forward. And the city council said, well, we had no choice. The city council president controls it. Yeah, well, you know what your choice was? You all say no. If he doesn't have a quorum, he doesn't have a meeting. Okay, and saying no would have said to the people of Fall River, you have a backbone. But instead, you all said, yeah, I'm going to be there. And you all made excuses to make yourself look good. That's not the way it works. Okay, Fall River needs a backbone of representation. All right, the mayor is so transparent, and I'm sorry to say this, but I'm going to. Spindle City Straight Talk is a recognized media outlet. Okay, we are recognized by the governor's office. We are recognized by 3 of the 4 major networks in our area as a source for information. And we get approached regularly. But the mayor does not recognize this news organization as worthy enough of getting the press releases and the information on when his press conferences are. Instead, I've got to get them from minions that work in City Hall, which I think is unfair. So I send an email out to no response and every excuse under the sun. Mr. Mayor, if you are going to tell the people you're going to be transparent, everyone needs to get the information, not just WSAR and the Herald News. We're here twice a week on this show, and we may be expanding if we can to another day. But let me tell you something. We are a responsible news organization. We check out all of our information. And believe me, we're checking out every one of your departments.
Well, as I said, we have a situation here that is it's critical. We are at a juncture here, and it doesn't seem. The problem I have is, and I have said I want to give him time. I have heard a lot of things about he's an attorney. He likes to get all his information together. Well, I'm going to say this publicly on the air. You know, Mr. Mayor, you are now a mayor. The people need to be kept in the loop. Transparency means let us know. We don't need every specific. We're not trying a case here. What we're doing is trying to save a city. And we need to be told that you're working on something, that you've got a plan, and we don't need to have every single piece of data and every single piece of testimony, because you're not trying a case. What you're doing is you're trying to work with the people, and the people of the city need to be told what's going on. We can't, you put the cart before the horse. Bringing all these people in to help you accomplish the mission before we even know what the mission is does not play well with the public. The public has had 5 years of behind the curtain government, the Wizard of Oz. We don't need that anymore. We need to know. We need to be told. We need to be kept apprised of what direction we're going. Because now all these jobs just never go away. You put them in ordinance, and that's one of the problems with government. You know, you look at the school department. They get grants, they create a job, the grant disappears. Unlike fire, police, the job stays. That's why we have all these ridiculous titles like Dean of Students for 8-year-olds. You know, I never saw a Dean of Student till I went to college. And it was like Deans of Students. Chief Operating Officer for the middle schools. You mean the middle schools that have got children in them, and they have principals, assistant principals, assistant to the assistant principal. Please. I mean, you know, government waste is epic, and in this city, we just can't afford it. You know, I mean, if we were, you know, maybe in Newton they can afford it with $113,000 a year average household income. We can't afford it. These people can't afford anything. As I said before the council, you know, we're getting killed. More and more money. We're spending and spending and spending and spending. And you know something? I might even agree, even in this period, with some spending, if you could give me a logical explanation why we need to do this and lay out a plan that I could look at and say, well, you know something? This might work. And that's the way it's got to be. I'm sorry. I can't, you know, I just can't accept the fact that we're supposed to trust me. You know, trust me. You know, that's one of the greatest, you know, the old saying, what the 3 greatest promises is, you know, the checks in the mail, and now from a politician, it's trust me. I'm doing everything I can. Well, give me an idea of what you're doing. I don't expect you to give me, the plan for the D-Day invasion.
Well, you know, Chip, this is the biggest problem. You're asking for something that I've been asking for. Common sense. You know, we're swearing again. You know, better be careful. They might take us off the air. Common sense isn't that hard, but it seems to be elusive for the city of Fall River. And that scares me. I mean, when you look at this transition team that he put together, let's look at it real quickly, okay? Melissa Panchley, school committee member, is now going to make recommendations and decisions on how the city pays its money. In my opinion, an absolute ethical violation. And I haven't heard anything yet on that. Then you have former Mayor Bob Correa. Not exactly a good choice when you consider how Bob was extracted from office in a polite way. Okay? Former Mayor Carlton Viveris. Carlton was a good mayor, but not because he had the skills, but he surrounded himself with people that had the skills. They knew what they were doing. You know, and when you look at this transition team, that's only 3 of the 5 or 6 people, okay? Liz Kaminsky, who was his chief of staff in the DA's office. You know, really, what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the table to make significant change?
Well, you're right, CJ, and I'm glad you brought up Carlton, because Carlton probably, and we've discussed this before, and I think Carlton probably was the prototype for open government, because the fact is he established the Fall River Regional Task Force, and virtually every single thing that the city did that had any kind of real liability to it was aired in front of the Fall River Regional Task Force. It was in the newspaper. The task force was made up of business people, bankers, union people, a cross-section of the community. They laid out plans. They gave it to that. The Herald News covered it. There was discussions. There were debates. There were things. And people really were kept up to speed. And this was even in the planning stage, not in the implementation stage, in the planning stage. It was a great, great thing because, as a matter of fact, I was on the board. We did the Education 2000 back in the 80s, and it was, we had the prototype for all the new schools, and we knew what schools needed replacing. And we did everything that the city did, every major undertaking the city entered into. The Fall River Regional Task Force got to weigh in on it, and the Herald News got to report on it, and the media got to report on it, and the people got to be informed about everything. And you know something? Most, not everything, because nothing's perfect, but you know something? I'd say 95% of the major undertakings the city took up during the Carlton Ferris administration were seamless. Why? Because people were kept in the loop. They were informed. Nobody said, oh, what's going on? They didn't come down and say, pay as you throw, start paying tomorrow, like they're doing now. And now what they're doing is they screwed it up in the first place, and rather than go back and revisit this and do it the right way, again, another rush to get the fines because people are not using the bags. I drove up Eastern Avenue the other day. There was a bag, green, not a non-purple bag, and there were papers all over the place, and I went by a place, and there was all kinds of bags that weren't purple, and people are aggravated. But then you get threatened, and the city council is rushing again to approve something that the people were not really happy with the way it was implemented. Maybe they would if it was done right, but guess what? Let's see what some of the most vocal opponents of pay-as-you-throw on the city council and the way it was implemented. Let's see how much dialogue we have when they debate this on the council floor.
Yeah, well, good luck on that. Because again, the gospel of Sutter is coming down, and they have to follow it. And I really hate being told, well, the guy's only been in office for 40 some odd days. He's not being given a chance. Da, da, da. You know what? He was being given a chance initially, and the problem is that he blew that chance. And people don't forget that. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen throughout the city, and how they're going to react to a lot of this, because I'll tell you now, this is not going to be a pleasant situation.
But on a positive note, for Mayor Sutter, the complaint from the OPCF,
the Office of Political Campaign Finance.
Yeah, yeah, and it must be the cold today, but they said that the complaint had no merit. They couldn't prove any of the allegations, and so they were. His campaign was run, which doesn't surprise me. The guy's a lawyer.
Oh, exactly.
You don't think he knows how to follow a law? Come on, I don't know who filed that complaint, but God, come on. You know yourself and know your enemy, as Sun Tzu once said. The fact is that you think a lawyer is not going to understand how to follow a law?
Well, a lot of them don't. But again, those complaints, I've had them filed against me when I ran for office. Every city council's probably had them. We all have them. But you know what? It goes back to your friend the lawyer who says all you need is the fee and the paperwork. So thank you for watching, and have a great day, and we'll see you on Friday.
Stay warm.